Thank you, ladies, so much. I'm JBR of JBR Visuals, an advocate for domestic violence awareness, artist and AI audiovisual filmmaker. Today, I'm honored to speak with our spotlight guest, Magdalene DD, Public Relations Advisor for SamukaAfrica.org and co-creator curator of the 34 Gallery Initiative. As you just heard, the 34 Gallery is a groundbreaking initiative that merges art with activism, directly impacting children in war zones, artists, and global mental health awareness as part of the United Nations 2030 agenda. We'll discuss how the 34 Gallery empowers artists, supports Samuka Africa's children, and aligns with United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, particularly in mental health advocacy, volunteer action, and the challenges of securing global funding for women and children. So let's dive in. Good afternoon to you, Magdalene. Yay.
Hello.
Hi. For those unfamiliar with the 34 Gallery, can you please share its origin story and core mission with us?
Certainly I can, but first I just have to say, wow, that last speaker, I was so motivated to just get my act together, especially with the chaos on my own desk and making peace with not having everything be perfect. So that is exactly what I needed to hear today. So the 34 Gallery is a UN SDG 3.4 mental health initiative. It is being run by SamukaAfrica.org out of Norton, Zimbabwe. It was co-created by myself and founding director Ezekiel Mudimu because we wanted to decrease the global suicide rate. We were seeing a lot of young people deciding not to be here post-pandemic because of the stress that was going on because of all of the cataclysms that they've seen. And we wanted to inspire them. So we decided that we were going to fuse the arts with mental health. And we are one of the only SDG 3.4 initiatives that are currently running. Our staff is also maintained by United Nations online volunteer personnel from 15 countries. All these professionals have come together for the united purpose of ensuring that no matter where you are, who you are, or what culture you're from, you are going to be represented as an artist through our cause, and we're going to come together to make sure that mental health remains on the agenda, that it is not forgotten, and that we have a space of healing to move forward. And lastly, I would just like to say that I have my camera off to stand in solidarity with our 34 Gallery artists who are domestic violence survivors and also in conflict settings, and they are not able to be visible in the public eye. And I do want to emphasize that privacy is something that we've kind of forgotten about in our modern age right now, and they need that privacy. So I'm standing in solidarity with them. I hope that's good.
That's awesome. Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because that's important for all of us, everyone watching, to know that. So how does the 34 Gallery use art to address global mental health, especially in communities with limited or no access to mental health care?
Okay, so previously when I spoke to you, I mentioned just how technology has managed to pretty much find its way into all the corners of the world. So you can have these very remote villages, but you'll have small children that have access to cell phones. Unfortunately, mental health has not found this way to do this. 85% of the global population is without mental health care whatsoever. That means there are no psychiatric medications for them, there's no talk therapy, there's no other outlet besides self-care and just handling it on their own. So what we propose to do with our initiatives is that we have monthly open calls for artists to create on a mental health theme. And we try to match those open calls with the need of the time. For example, our open call for January ran during December, which is a very happy time for everybody unless you have a really bad family or you're in an economic hardship or you've lost someone or something like that. So our January open call started on December the 1st. The theme was solitude. We provided a mental health outlet for all of those emotions during December to be channeled into a positive avenue, into art, into creation. And then for the new year, we celebrate 20 artists that we vote on to decide that they're going to carry that mental health theme throughout the month for motivation for the global audience. Because I think you guys have been where I've been. You're scrolling, you're in a mood, the day has been terrible, and all of a sudden you see that post with that message that says the thing you needed to see at that moment, and it manages to change the whole tone of your day. That's what our aim is for the gallery. The other aspect of our operations is that we do provide job development, career development for our artists. We do provide recommendation letters, artist critiques for their work. We will represent you as a gallery. In exchange, we just ask, be a mental health advocate. Tell us about your struggle so you can empower the next person to still want to stay here. That's what our goal is. So any artist that comes on board with us, you will be fully represented on social media, and we'll make sure that you're taken care of. That's it.
Can you talk about the role of children in war zones creating art for the gallery?
Okay, well, we have, as far as child populations are concerned, our advocacy, which we have been greenlit to expand now to a far larger initiative, and we will have mental health tips and art therapy exercises available on the website for this particular demographic. So, what is happening is that we have about as much conflict as we did on the planet prior to World War II. Post pandemic, this is a systemic problem. Okay. Our planet is not ready for this level of conflict. It just isn't. So, in these situations, we have the people who are the most at risk, which are namely the women and the children. They have no outlet, they're isolated, but they might have a cell phone and access to the internet. So, these open calls and our outreach enable them to be able to talk to us. And they provide a lot of feedback, these children. They will tell us which artists they like, which artists they don't. They'll ask us questions. I know our artist who is a Google photographer, Jaber, he was selected, and all of the kids were so inspired. They started asking, how do you become a Google photographer? How do you do this? What do you need? Can I take pictures on my cell phone? So we reached out to Jaber and we said, hey, can you write an interludes feature with us and describe what your steps were in becoming a photographer? What do you need to do for that? And he agreed. And so we published the interludes. That's our virtual publication. And so a lot of our artists, JBR included, who wrote a wonderful piece called 12, which goes into her domestic violence advocacy and her very powerful story of survival. These are all featured in interludes to inspire the young children who do not have a voice, who do not vote, and frankly are not political. Okay. They don't have a say in any of this chaos that's going on right now. We want to make sure that they have an outlet so that we don't keep finding them in these villages. That's about it.
Hmm, that's a lot. How does this initiative give them a voice and a form of emotional resilience?
It provides resilience for the kids because it brings hope. I think all of us here and everyone that's going to watch this has been a child who's been in a tough spot. And when you were in that tough spot, what kept you going? A song, a dance, a book, a film, an actor, somebody in the arts touched you in that moment to say, you know what, you can make it. You need to actually be there. Okay. And the arts was the method, the conduit to get to you, to make you still want to try. That is the brilliance of the initiative and the arts themselves. I think artists do themselves a real disservice, a disjustice really, because they sell themselves short. We teach people how to live.
Hmm.
They don't know how to live without us. Imagine the party, there's no music, the DJ is gone. What? Everyone wants to mutiny, right? We teach people how to live. We remind them of who they are. And that is why artists have been persecuted, are quieted first. Whenever this kind of darkness starts up, they want to make sure the artists are not going to be on the forefront to remind people to keep their light and stay true to who they are. So not only by joining the initiative, by sharing your art with us, by sharing your advocacy, you're not just speaking to the child that's somewhere in a war zone, you're speaking to the neighbor who can't speak up about who they are because they need an outlet. You're helping the person in the grocery store who doesn't know if they're going to get groceries, but they saw your artwork and just decided, you know what, I can make it. This is the empowering message that we're responsible for. Artists create golden ages. So I'm asking, for the first time in history with the internet, artists have a way to mobilize and fight the dark tide of a dark age in a way that we never have before. So I'm asking all the artists globally to mobilize. Let's get together. Let's show the world what a united world that celebrates everyone looks like, because that's what we do. When we get the party started, everybody's at the table. So that's my thought on that.
So great segue into this question. Many artists feel powerless in the face of global crisis. So how does the 34 Gallery empower artists to contribute meaningfully to social change?
Okay, so we are tying all of this in with mental health, because here's the thing: mental health involves all of these things. All of these things that are going on stem from mental health. Okay. So there is no talk about domestic violence without the mental health component of what that does. There's no talk about child abuse or economic hardship or war. Any of these things all touch on mental health. And that's why I think, even though it is the least discussed in our societies, I think it can be the connective thread to unite us through the turbulent waters that we find ourselves in at the moment. I think that is the way forward. And the way that artists are empowered through this is because the art community joining together as one to celebrate all of us in the face of all of this keeps us going. It's a motivating factor, and it puts you in the spotlight on social media because we feature each one of you. We give you your spotlight. We want to make sure that you are heard and you are seen. And that's the best way to fight the darkness that we're seeing right now.
You mentioned interludes. Are there any other more profound or impactful stories that stand out within the initiative?
Wow, there are so many. The first one that comes to mind is Captain Solo.
Mm.
Captain Solo is currently in a war zone right now with his elderly father. He is not able to leave because his father is incapacitated, and he's creating art. And I can say in December, when he submitted his artwork for our open call, he was one of the most cheerful people I'd ever come across. And it was surprising and it was humbling. That's the power of art. That's the power of what we're doing. Okay. Those are the lives that we're touching. Um, there are a number of other artists that we have, which they're in this room. I think Lady Light's artwork that she submitted to us was so profound that we got so much outreach from young African girls who were delighted to see themselves depicted in art. You know, they were just simply staggered at how beautiful these images were that she creates. I can say the same thing for Mind Soul Meditations, who's here. Be Bold during the summer. She released this. Man, we got so much feedback on this. Wow, I want to be bold. I'm going to the beach. I'm wearing my shades. I'm doing it all, girl. I mean, it really spoke to people about their inner beauty and living out loud. And I think right now the times are trying to get us to go back into these shells and kind of hibernate again. And I don't think we need to do that. We work too hard to live out loud, to live in silence again. I'm not willing to go back that far. So I'm just thinking that with powerful people like the ones that are in this room, we can unite and really make a difference this way.
Hmm. So SamukaAfrica.org plays a critical role in advocacy. Can you break down its connections with the 34 Gallery and how both initiatives align?
Certainly. So Samuka Africa has been in operation in the northern region of Zimbabwe, which is about 40 minutes outside the capital. It's been in operation for 19 years. It'll be 20 years next month. So this is a United Nations climate action cause. So what does that mean? It means that Samuka Africa has been at the forefront of SDG 4 quality education and SDG 5 gender equality efforts. And the reason for that is because they have a child marriage rehabilitation program. That program actually takes child marriage survivors and rehabilitates them with life skills training, vocational training, and gets them to fast track into colleges so that they're actually able to become entrepreneurs on their own, have degrees on their own, and they're just not somebody else's wife. Okay, so that's one of the aspects that they do. We also have SDG initiatives 1 through 6. There's a zero hunger program that they do because climate change drought has impacted much of East and Southern Africa to the point of famine in some of these regions. So they have a mobile food truck. They go around and they find at-risk youth, families, children, women. They give out the food to them, water supplies, things like that. And they're also running the only library in the area of 70,000 people. Let that sink in right now.
Wow.
One library,
Wow.
70,000 people. They are running it with a youth center. And we have a lot of boys and girls that come there after school for computer access, free Wi-Fi, and additional skills training. So they have been doing clean water initiatives. There's so much good work that they do on site, on the ground. And with all of this work, what did they decide to do? Let's help people in the virtual space too. Let's create the 34 Gallery and help all the world's artists. So we're just moving forward on and on every single year. We're trying to make sure that we reach as many people as possible.
Thank you. Your work extends beyond mental health into SDG 5, gender equality and the rights of women and children. What challenges are you facing with the rollback of global funding for these initiatives? If you can talk about this.
So as as a United Nations volunteer personnel supervisor, to be a part of the United Nations is, of course, to be politically neutral. And that is because we are supposed to represent all of humanity. Saying that, however, I will say that there are aspects of a lot of the things that are going on that are simply not political. Children are not political, okay? The right to have an education is not political. The right to live with medical health care, that's not political, okay? These things are not political. So my viewpoint is that politics has overstepped into a lot of these areas that fall under human rights, okay? They are human rights. So the challenge right now with the lack of the funding is that there are women and children at risk all over the world now. This is not just a problem in underdeveloped countries or regions. This is a problem right here in higher income countries where domestic violence shelters and all of these types of services are also being impacted, rolled back, or straight out eliminated. Here's the problem with us. We are not going to survive as a species if we do not unite in peace.
Mm.
I think everybody knows that. Creatives are intuitive. I think most of us feel that. I think at night when we're sitting there, we feel that. There is something going on here that is encroaching on all of us, and it is up to us, feeling that darkness, to rise up, to shine our light, and speak out for these women and children that do not have a voice. Because if we don't do it, who will? I am not interested in being a bystander to tragedy. I'm going to get up. I'm going to speak out. I'm going to reach out and I'm going to inspire. And that's what all of us should think to do. If the sun can do that easily up in the sky every single day, I think we could do it too. I'm just saying, we already got the role model up there. Let's do it.
Let's go.
Mhm.
um, yeah. Can you explain the importance of volunteer action in achieving the UN's goals?
Okay, so the United Nations volunteer program is one of these things that a lot of people just don't know about, but there are all of these things. We are just one initiative out of hundreds that utilize United Nations professional volunteers. They come from all walks of life, okay? They are artists, they are doctors, they are administrative assistants, they are just any industry you can think of. There is a position somewhere where they need a volunteer to help. And I think that UNV is also how they recruit UN professionals. So where does that tie in with volunteering in general? We are the people of the gaps. Think about all the volunteer work that you've ever done in your life. If that volunteer work wasn't done with that initiative, with that soup kitchen, with that homeless group, would any of that stuff get done without volunteers? It would not. We are the hearts of the gap. Because we care, things get done. Okay. I think it's coming to a point where we're realizing that the institutions that are in place are not equipped to fully deal with these problems. It's going to take individuals who care to come in and really do that. They need time. Throwing money at a problem, sometimes that doesn't work. We have a very low budget at the 34 Gallery, and yet we've managed to reach 250 artists who have worked with us, and we have a global audience of millions with a very small budget. Tiny, very tiny. Now, if we can do all of that on volunteer effort alone, imagine what we could do if we come together just to help our neighbors, help each other, or help the creative community. And I want to emphasize one primary point. The economic circumstances that are hitting everyone, artists generally do not have health insurance. They generally do not have high incomes. We're looking at our community being hit very hard, extremely hard. And we all know creatives are also the first ones to succumb to suicide when there is a large scale conflict of any type. It hurts their hearts. We're not wired for that. We're wired for peace. So that's why I'm asking, if you have a drive to volunteer, it doesn't matter if you're volunteering with us or volunteering elsewhere. Let's get up, let's motivate each other, and let's mobilize. That's my opinion.
You spoke about Letters to Zimbabwe and Africa Giving. Can you just explain a little bit on these initiatives and how people can actually support them?
So what happened is that a lot of the regions in our world have been labeled at risk for investment right now due to climate change. And for that reason, there are a lot of platforms that no longer want to process donations or things of this nature. They're pulling out investments in these regions. So we actually had this happen to the 34 Gallery in Samuka, Africa on December the 1st. So Africa Giving is a donation platform in Africa that actually stepped up to fill this gap so that we could receive charitable donations. During the holiday season, we were unable to fundraise because we did not have a way to put a button on the website for people to actively donate. That is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And we're not the only organization that this happened to. So when they decided to step up, we also have our 34 Gallery artist, Chanel Julia Rosita, and she decided that she was going to spearhead the Letters to Zimbabwe campaign, which is encouraging the public to actually send letters to Zimbabwe to the kids. It doesn't have to be a full donation. If you would like, you could send food or water or clothes or books for the library or anything like that. But it doesn't take that much postage to send a postcard. Can you imagine what that would do for a kid running around in Norton, Zimbabwe to get something from France or from Germany or from Asia or, Indonesia, any of these places? It makes them feel special. It makes them want to try, because one of the things that we are very, very fed up with is finding young people in our villages that are not, they've just decided that they don't want to be here. And that is something that I'm seeing on projects in India, in Vietnam, and throughout all parts of Africa, throughout all parts of South America. I primarily work on initiatives for children. I've done that since 2007. And I think up until 2019, my friends, I was not on a project with a death toll. That is standard now for me. I would like our children to have a way to keep moving forward. And they're very inspired by this initiative, and we're going to save more lives this way. That's what I believe. Mhm.
Hmm. All right. In the interest of time, I have one final question for you.
Mhm.
Um, What do you say to those who feel that art cannot make a real difference in solving global crises?
Art motivates people to live. There is no golden age in the historical period that does not have art. It doesn't. And when I hear comments like that, it really, really disappoints me because we all sat in history class and we're looking at the work of anthropologists and archaeologists. And what are they finding in these sands? They are finding pottery that artists made. They're finding architecture that artists made. They're finding clothing that artists made. They're finding writing that artists made. We are the historic record. We catalog the time period, the 70s. If you look at that time period, the artists made that iconic. The artists make the 80s iconic. The artists do all of this. So, how can any artist out there looking around at this whole world that is colored by every single thing we do think that if we don't inspire these professionals who are too logical to figure this out, we don't do our job, they won't figure it out. Our job is to inspire them to figure it out. That's what our role is. We keep hope alive. And I think the fact that we've allowed hope and light to be so minimized in this age of negativity, I think that's a great failing. But I don't think it's an insurmountable one. So I'm encouraging every artist that's out there that has low self esteem about this. You make history. That's what we do. So don't ever think less of yourself if we're making all of this go. Okay? That's my opinion on that.
Magdalene, as always, this has been an eye-opening conversation. The work you're doing with the 34 Gallery and SumikaAfrica.org is not just inspiring, it's essential. And thank you for sharing your insight, your passion, and most importantly, actionable ways for artists and individuals to help out. So for those of you watching today, if you want to support the 34 Gallery, whether through artwork, donations, or advocacy, please, please, please visit SumikaAfrica.org. Every action, no matter how small the contribution is to how big it helps this movement. Artists create golden ages, as Magdalene has indicated, and despite the challenges we face today, art remains a beacon of hope. If you'd like to view the 4-part series interview with Magdalene and myself, entitled A Curator's Journey for Advocacy and Change, please visit JBR Visuals on YouTube, Rad TV, or the Awedacity channel for the full exposure of this discussion. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Magdalene, and to the team Awedacity for being absolutely impossible to ignore. Eat a cookie, ladies. Love and light. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.